All right, so I just finished a sit down with Rich Germeau. Rich Germeau has been has a popular name when it comes to the topic of the Sasquatch thing going on around the world, and he has gained a wealth of knowledge. He started off innocent, as most do, had one walk across the road in front of him while he was on duty as a police officer, and then it went from there. And he shares a terrifying moment, and he shares with us how he evolved with his knowledge gaining, accepted some hard truths that he normally didn't want to, but he did. And he's come a long, long way. And he shares it all today. And he's going to come back and share more with us again later on. So, here you go. Here we go.
Perfect.
Back. I would imagine everybody on my channel here knows who you are. I would guess by now you're pretty outspoken and did a lot of looking into the one topic, which is Sasquatch. Like, what do you call these people or beings? What do you refer to them as?
You know, Sasquatch, I guess, Bigfoot. I don't. It's gotten to a point now that I've had enough experience and time in this thing, and personally, that I'm pretty solid in what I believe, I guess you could say, as far as I don't know exactly what they are, but I have a pretty good idea
Yeah.
based on what they can do, based on what happened to me personally, based on to all the interviews that I've done with people over the period of time that I actually researched this, and I'm not really that engaged in research now. I do a little bit. I have a few contacts of people I see regularly, and we look around a little bit, but I'm not really. I'm not trying to collect evidence. I'm not trying to get photographs. I'm not trying to. I don't care about any of that. I don't care about any proof or anything like that at this point because nothing's going to change with this really. Nothing's going to happen until there's some sort of broad disclosure related to it by the people that actually do have the knowledge and the information, that have had access to the resources and technology to find out as much as there's possibly able to be found out about this.
Yeah.
And I know for sure that they do know, right? Obviously, they know
Sure.
because
Obviously.
what whatever these things are, the things that they can do and demonstrate the power that they have is valuable, right? And the people that control us, the centralized control system, what you would call a government, would want to get every advantage possible and utilize all of its resources to find out as much as it possibly could know related to this topic, which I'm sure that they have done a long time ago. And as evidence of that, they're not going around and contacting researchers who have experiences, even professionals that are in the capacity of their duties that have these encounters and have these experiences. The federal government is not coming around in any country and questioning these people or interviewing them about what they know or what they've seen,
Right.
which tells you that they know much more already and they have no need for that. Plus, I mean, Bigfoot in particular, what I found out related to it is that whatever it represents, whatever it is extremely threatening to this centralized control structure. And it seems to be that whatever it is, they under no circumstances can disclose, because I think what it does is it leads us to a place where you end up at the truth. And the
Right.
truth is something that they can't afford to tell anybody because it's so dramatic related to our existence and about the world that we live in that there's no way they can disclose it,
Mm.
because it would only create more questions that they also can't answer,
Mm-hmm.
like what these things are and where they come from.
What they can
Right. And
do and possibly what we can do. Right.
well, exactly. That's true. And I was doing some research lately, more recently, I guess you could say, um, about an unrelated topic, about a guy who's been in. He's a second in line to the Dalai Lama, okay, in Tibet, and this guy has been under in Chinese custody since 1996. He was taken into Chinese custody when I think he was 6 or 8 years old. Him and his whole family, and they haven't shown his face since then. right? So I was doing research on him, and I came across this thing in Tibetan Buddhism where they talk about, they call it a Bayul, Beyul. And what it is, it's a documentation of locations in the Himalayan mountains, predominantly in valleys, that the lamas and the Buddhists claim where two worlds overlap, right? The spirit world and the physical world. And there's actually uh, entryways or hidden portals, I guess you could say, to these locations. And groups of people have tried to go into these and find these locations. You know, look at Dave Politis missing 411 and all these people that go missing and never come back again. Or sometimes you find their remains in suspiciously in locations that have already been searched, right? With dogs, with people. Well, I'm saying that there possibly is a historical documentation of these places where people might be disappearing into. And it may be that these Bigfoots have some relationship to these places, meaning that they may be guardians or gatekeepers to these places, or they may be utilizing these bayouls to cross over back and forth from one world to another world, right? Which would tell you that they are some sort of a higher being, like they're resonating at a higher frequency,
Right.
right? Like they're not bound by the same rules of the third dimension that we are. And so they can freely operate, right, outside of time and space.
Well, I know.
Um,
Yeah, that's definitely the conclusion I've been coming to for me on my ride. I don't preach shit to anybody, but obviously, if you're open to learning, you got to open up your brain. That's the route you're going to end up. There's no other route to go. But and I
well,
came
no,
to
you're
that
right.
conclusion because so many times with people's eyewitness accounts, the reactions of these beings is like they just got there. What am I doing here? I gotta get out of here. It doesn't make sense. Being a hunter, especially like as an example, there's a woman. Son said there's a guy riding horse out back. She looks out back, and here's this 10-foot tall dude going tree to tree, like, I got to get out of here. In the bottom of a tight valley in farm country where there's neighbors every 10 acres. It's like
Hmm.
humans are basically the easiest things to avoid. Easy. And if you are land based 100% of the time, you're not coming up over that height of land and all of a sudden ending up in the bottom of the valley in somebody's ranch's backyard in
No,
broad daylight. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying,
maybe you just,
as an
yeah,
example of me reading these body actions, a lot of these beings are acting like, whoa, I shouldn't be here. I got to get out of here. You know what I mean? It's like, well, obviously you knew where you're going when you got there, if you came on land
yeah,
physically the whole time, which doesn't, it's just, there's a lot of that was incidents like that were helping me understand, all right, they're not here 100% full time. No effing way.
no, I agree. You know, I mean, I had the when I was involved in the research in the beginning, when I had the outlook that they were some sort of relic hominid or likely that. The one thing that started to coming from a law enforcement background, I was a detective and involved in true crime investigations. I started to look through the BFRO, you know, databases and whatnot for these sighting databases, especially in the area that I lived in the Puget Sound region at that time, Olympic Peninsula. The sighting density was too great. It was happening historically all over the place. You know, boom, boom, boom. It's everywhere, right? So if these things are some kind of a super rare, you know, hominid or ape, there's no way that they'd be popping up all over the place because it couldn't certainly be the same ones, right? Over and over again. They're trying to protect themselves. They would be trying to hide from humans because humans are the greatest threat. So it didn't make any sense to me. To me, what it looked like is that there was an abundant population of these things, that they were all over the place, right? And it certainly couldn't be the same ones. I mean, they were here obviously exploiting, you know, the environment and our resources, but and they can do that physically, obviously. I mean, they physically can poop in the woods, they physically, you know, can kill game, they physically can appear in front of you and leave footprints, but at the same time there's all these other strange attributes to them that you hear over and over again through talking to witnesses. And I even experienced some of it myself related to um, potentially dematerialization and remote location, acts that defy, you know, time and space, uh, being able to communicate through, telepathy, or in the dream state, I guess you could say, being in the astral plane physically, or and being able to communicate with people that way. And these are not normal things, right? There are no other animals that we know of that really can do these things outside of like elephants and whales that can use, infrasound and long range communication, and some of these frequencies to cause behavioral changes in other animals around them or prey, right? With tigers and things like that that can do this stuff. But outside of that, these are wild attributes that these things have that they seem to be able to manifest at will. And another thing, that's very interesting to me is that the technology that we have just gets greater and greater and greater with game cameras, with phones, with drones now and everything. And the level of evidence that we're getting doesn't seem to be really increasing that much related to photographic or video evidence. Or, I mean, there seems to be a constant amount that pops up out there, but it's all delegitimized at this point now because of technology. Nobody believes any pictures. Nobody believes, any photo evidence or anything like that, which is fine,
Even if
whatever. But it doesn't make any logical sense that these are just some biological being, just like every other creature on Earth that is out there walking around living its life. Everything is stacked against that, right? I mean, there's just way too much technology, too many people out there. There's way too many people that are actually aware of these things now, right? And have knowledge of them. So
well, I always
it
say,
is what it is. There's something else going on.
yeah, if you just think common sense, I mean, if they were an animal, our indigenous hunters would have had their teeth around their neck generations ago.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And that's the thing I'll bring up too, related to these bioles I mentioned. I've come to the conclusion that my theory on this thing is there aren't any bones or bodies to recover. There aren't any out there. Because just like, and I'll throw this at you. I've been passing this around quite a bit now because it was kind of like an epiphany when I found this thing, and then I started to really think about this, and I correlated the missing 411 to it, and it makes all the sense in the world to me, right? Where, okay, for instance, you have these people in the missing 411 that go missing, and you have these like massive infrastructure gets deployed related to these events with search and rescue, cadaver dogs and everything, and they do searches for months on end, sometimes with up to hundreds of volunteers and participants, and they don't uncover anything. And then 2 years later, in an area that was heavily searched close to the location where they thought that this disappearance occurred, in many cases somebody will be walking through and finds a pile of bones and maybe some shoes set there and maybe a backpack set out, or they find somebody shoved up underneath a log,
Yeah,
right? An extreme elevation that was right where everybody was searching, right next to it, but the dogs never keyed. And these dogs, you probably have some idea of cadaver dogs, bloodhounds, right? And their abilities. If there's a dead body that's within a half a mile from a range that they're looking, they're going to find it. There's no way that they're not going to find it, right? If it's decomposing and the smell's coming from it. And in these circumstances, these bones just appear where there's been heavy searching before. Just like Bigfoot, there's a lot of allegations of people claiming to have killed them or buried bodies and whatnot, but the government can't get all the bones. They can't around and seize everything. You would think there'd be somebody out there. There'd be photographs floating around of legitimate remains. There's none. It's all just fairy tales, right? So it may be the fact that, okay, consider this idea that somebody goes wandering off into the woods and they just happen to wander through some sort of portal and end up in some other realm, some other world, right? But it's a non-native world to them, just like this is a non-native world to these Bigfoot entities, right? So what happens if you perish or you die in this other realm? Well, could it be that the laws of the universe and the laws of nature require that the matter of actually the physical body be returned to its native realm? It can't stay in a foreign realm,
right,
right? It can't incorporate into that realm, right? The matter can't incorporate to a foreign place. It has to be returned to the place it came from.
right,
Just like if Bigfoot dies here or perishes here, its matter has to be reincorporated with the realm that it's native to. And
right.
if we happen to die in a place that we stumble into that we're not to, our remains have to be returned to the ground that natively from Earth. Right. So it makes a lot of sense to me that that's why these things are happening. Right. That's why this missing 411 enigma, this phenomena that happens. I mean, the evidence is out there. These cases have repeated over and over and over again, right? Where these strange circumstances of remains being located, or people that go missing and then have lost time or don't remember what happened to them, and they after they reappear. Well, maybe there's an association to all this. Maybe there's a connection between the two.
Hmm.
Maybe that's why we don't have Bigfoot bodies or bones or remains, right? And it may be as well that these things don't even fear death at all because they understand that they don't really even ever die, right? It's just, they reappear again in another form or as the Bigfoots again. Or maybe it's just that they only manifest as that when they come here. Maybe
Maybe.
they're actually something else entirely.
One thing though is a lot of people that pointed guns at him have got the message in their head, don't do it.
Yeah.
If that's telling me, all right, you're telling me flat out that gun's a threat. If you're telling me not to do it,
Well, yeah, it's a pain in the ass to die and then have to be reborn again and to come back and do everything over again, I mean,
so
yeah,
you've seen one. You've how many times have you seen these beings?
I've seen two,
You've seen two different ones?
10 years apart. Yeah.
Same one?
Nope, totally different areas. I was on duty as a police officer in La Push, Washington on the first time. It I was driving into work about 7 p.m. in July, and it walked across the road in front of me at like 50 yards. I had a what do you call the view? Profile view of it. So I didn't see it head on. I saw it from the side, and so I got to notice everything about it, and I was close enough to clearly see that it wasn't a human being. Um, and then 10 years later, when I was actually engaged in research, because I didn't do any research for about 8 years, and I never really wanted to. Then I was at a research location checking some cameras, and that's the famous one, the Harstein incident, where I had all that, whatever you call it, infrasound zapping, they call it, and then it showed itself to me and growled at me at like 20 yards, face up, face on. But it was in motion when I seen it. So it once I was lifting up my head to look at it, it started to duck down and it kind of squatted and shuffled across its opening at a not unnatural speed, silent, totally silent. But that's kind of with me what brought it all together. It made me admit to myself or start to admit to myself that I was dealing with something that wasn't natural and it was something else,
Did
right?
you see
Uh,
advantage?
no, well, it moved out of view and then silence. So I assume that it either stopped moving at that point or I hadn't come to the conclusion yet at that point that they potentially had the ability to dematerialize. I wasn't there yet. It took me a long time to really accept this stuff. I mean, it was several years, because I came into this as a cop, I was a black and white thinker and I was utilizing all the training and the resources that I had because from my job. And
Dealing with
I
humans.
was fairly convinced. I was arrogant, and thought, well, I'd already seen them before, so I wasn't objective related to it. I knew they existed. And I was kind of doing it as a side thing because I was a whistleblower at the same time, and my career was winding down, and it was highly stressful what I was going through, and so I decided to start doing this, and kind of like as a relief from that. And I thought I could be the one. I thought that just like everybody else thinks that my ego took over, and I was like, well, I could be the guy. I mean, I have all these skills and this training, and I could just utilize it for this and if we can find them. And sure enough, we could find them. That wasn't difficult. But then you start to see all this other strange stuff, and me and Scott Carpenter used to communicate all the time early on because we were both in the Sasquatch Genome Project together in the beginning, and so we were always communicating and passing back and forth, our experiences and the things that we were noticing, and it didn't make sense at that point. It was like, whatever this thing is, it's not a normal thing, that's for sure. I mean, and he was having crazy stuff happen to him constantly too. It was from the beginning, from the get-go. And I think that he had some childhood experiences that kinda had, pushed him into this more or less, where, you know and with me, it took, like I said, several years for me to actually admit to myself. It and that's really what it was. It's basically getting to a point where you can admit it to yourself,
Yeah, yeah.
that you have to tell yourself the truth,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. You have to consider all the evidence, your own personal experiences, and you have to come to the conclusion that it's not what
It's not a
it's not
monkey.
what a lot of people think that it is. And so many more people now are waking up to this thing. This whole woo thing has gone mainstream now. So it's essentially taken over to where now these other people are chasing behind and trying to catch up. I mean, you've seen it with Matt Moneymaker and the BFRO. He's all of a sudden revealing all this extra normal, paranormal stuff and that
Oh, is
they have hidden for all these years. Oh yeah, he's been coming out with it now. All
he?
this different stuff like orbs and electronics going dead and all this other stuff that they never divulged before because I think that the train has left the station already. Right, it's never going back. We've already crossed over,
Those
and
pricks sure did a good job at trying to keep it covered.
they did it for a lot of years, and that's one of the and honestly, I'd have to say that I'm probably one of the people that helped push this open up related to them because that's one of the things I would talk about regularly from the beginning is the fact that the BFRO, they curated this thing they called Flats, which is a private database that they only allow members into that has all of the sightings
Oh yeah.
and all the encounters that are reported to them, which was a much larger number than what's public. Like at that time, it was probably 90% of the reports were unpublished. They were all just sitting there in flats, and only about 10% of them were the ones that were actually published to the public so they could see them. And it wasn't because they were actually, at least from my point of view, they weren't hiding it. It was more or less that the researchers that were the ones who were fielding these reports and investigating them, they weren't publishing them. But because a lot of them had bias too, to where they weren't willing to really consider or uh, incorporate this other evidence that existed, which happened to be a large portion of the evidence, specifically coming from people that had long-term um, encounters, I guess, or experiences with these things, like habituators.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess you would say they're the ones that are the ones that have these parallel stories or experiences related to all the weird stuff related to the topic. A lot of the times where the people that have a singular experience and that may be strange phenomena, it only happens once to them and they aren't really comfortable to divulge it and they kind of write it off, right? They go back about their lives and they kind of don't consider it. Even though it happened to them, they kind of just push it to the side and like, well, I'm gonna put it off in this box, and I'm not gonna open that box again. I'm just gonna let it sit there. And it may be that it happens again to them and again over a period of time because it seems like once somebody has an experience, it's something that is stuck with them forever. It changes them forever. And a lot of times they have reoccurring things that occur with them, right? Strange stuff. And you've experienced some of this stuff yourself. Um, quite a bit of it probably at this point because I bet you as soon as you actually got openly engaged in this stuff, it got more intense,
Well,
right? More
I
things
think
happen.
yeah, I think I found that you bring it on, right? You bring it on. If that's the route you're
Oh,
gonna get,
absolutely.
if you ask for it, they deliver it, right?
It is. It's like it's almost like permission granted.
Yeah,
You
for sure.
invite it in, right? It's just like all this other stuff. I hate to say it, but you correlate it with all these other type things. Like I'm not going to say demonic or anything like that. I'm not. I'm actually leaning against that now. I mean, they certainly have some of those attributes, but I'm not saying that they have an evil intent or anything like that, right? It doesn't appear to me that that's what's really going on with this thing. I just think that there's some sort of a flesh and blood being that is also a spirit being that can be both at the same time and operate in more than one capacity at the same time. And there does seem to be an aspect of it, though, related to I do have a belief and a feeling that I guess you could call it a tit for tat related to it. Once they know that you're interested and engaged, the more you think about it, the more it brings it on.
Big
Right,
time.
so to me, it's and you're getting something out of it too. It makes you feel special to a degree. It makes you feel like maybe you're a little important. You're different than other people, like you're kind of chosen. A lot of people go down that path, and so it is kind of an ego enhancement too, to where you see it with a lot of these people engaged in this research that their ego gets pumped up, right, in this community, and
Yeah,
so you're getting something out of it. You're getting a gift related to it. So which tells me that they're getting something too, right? There's an exchange going on. It may be that they're gaining something that's energetic from you related to it. Almost like I guess you could call it a parasitic entity to one degree or another, at
right.
least for my impression, that they're gaining some sort of energy off of you because of your engagement with them, right? And that's why it seems to keep going
And
because it
what
has value.
and I don't think they have a preference to which emotion they're creating out of us either, I don't think. Have you ever experienced the terror that, like, like I've been scared. I've had the shit scared out of me, but I haven't, from the people that email in and the way they're describing their dread and doom and terror, it sounds pretty heavy. Have you ever experienced that flavor?
Oh yeah, that only one time, the Harstein Island incident. And, everybody's heard it, but I'll talk about it again real quick here. That day in particular was an odd day because I had ran for sheriff against my boss. I had lost the election. And so November 11th was the day that year that you were mandated by law to start pulling up your campaign signs. So I was out in the community that I lived in, all over the place, just pulling up signs. I had like 1,000 signs out, so it was a big job. And I just happened to be next to my research location at Harstein Island. And I was driving through there, and I had my keys with me to my cameras, but I wasn't armed that day. That was the only time that I ever went out without a sidearm on. And like I tell people, I didn't carry a gun for Bigfoot because, well, I was a cop in that county for one, and people knew who I was, and you never knew who you're going to run into anywhere. And it could be a dangerous situation. And then the other side of it, there's predators out there, and there's cats, and you might stumble onto a bear and have to protect yourself one way or another, and it's kind of foolish not to have some protection with you. But that particular day, I wasn't geared up to go out and look for to field any cameras or check any or anything like that. I didn't have a sidearm with me. I didn't have a pack with me. I was wearing tennis shoes, and Harstein was a place that I could just pop in because I had cameras right along this road. It was more of it was checkerboarded, with residential areas and timberland. So I could go in there and get a couple cameras out of convenience and then be on my way and finish what I was doing. Well, I pulled into the spot I always stop at, which is um, right next to a bus stop between two roads that intersect a north-south road. And from the minute that I pulled into the location, I had this sense in me and this feeling that I just needed to go home, that I shouldn't be there that day. And I used to stop in here while I was working regularly because it was on my patrol route, and I would just park my cop car, take a 20-minute stroll in the woods, and walk around and just observe. Because this location particularly, I was doing something different than I did any other places. I was trying to do this non-invasively. Actually, I had one other place that was a habituation site that I was doing the same thing at Harstein, but that was it. Um, and most places, I was just going in every 6 months or so, and I didn't want them to be aware of what I was doing. So I just go and set cameras like a hiker or a hunter, and I get out. So I was going into remote spots, off trail a lot of times, or a few miles in off of Forest Service roads and whatnot. Sometimes that far, sometimes not so far. And then I'd come back 6 months to a year later and check them because I didn't want them to notice me or know what I was doing because I didn't really I underestimated them at that point, right? So I didn't really want to accept or didn't even know or believe that they had these other awarenesses or abilities. but at Harstein that day. So what happened was I pulled in and I had this overwhelming feeling just to get back in the car and go home. And I was
Right
like,
away. Like as soon as you got out of the car?
actually, before I even got out,
No shit.
before I turned it off, as soon as I pulled in, and my gut was telling me, or something was telling me, that you don't belong here today. You shouldn't be here. And so I ignored it because there was no context for that. And I mean, spot where I was parked at a bus stop, there's cars driving by on the main road. There's houses within 500 yards of me, or not even, if not closer. And a lot of the area, these two cameras I was going to check, I had like five in this spot. There was two real close, so I didn't really have to get muddy or anything to check them. So I was just going to get in and out. So there's no reason for this. And so I got out of the car. I started making my way to my first camera, which was the furthest one away from the car, because I only had plans to check two. And as I got out, I started to get this dread feeling, like it was like a black hole, like time was standing still, like extreme danger, like so extreme that it was so out of context and so unnatural that I was dismissing it, because it was like, I'm not going to pay any attention to this. This is foreign. I've never felt it before. I don't have any context for it, but I'm going to ignore it. I'm here to do a duty, a job, and then I'm just going to get out of here. And so I got to that first camera while this is all building in me, and I happened to see an impression next to it, right next to it. So I got really excited, and so that kind of diminished this dread and this fear that I had going on a little bit, and got me excited to go to the next one, because I really wanted to check that camera. And this is before the days where I didn't have a card reader or anything like that, so I had to wait till I got home to where I could look at them. And so I checked that one, spent a little time there, and started making my way to the next one, which was actually close to the highway, within like 70 yards of the highway that was out there. And this feeling is just building in me and building in me. And I end up going to that camera, and I've got a whole ring of keys, because I was using these master cable locks, these Python locks, to secure these Reconnex cameras. And it's a wet climate, and so there's a lot of corrosion, and these locks get sticky. And sometimes if you push too hard, you bust the keys off in them. And so I'd put them in, I'd wiggle them a little to see if they engage, and if they didn't, I'd go to the next one. And so I was going fast as I could. And sometimes I miss keys. I wouldn't engage it enough, and I'd pull it too early because I was afraid to break them off. And because I've broken quite a few keys off in these locks before. And
That sucks.
as I'm doing this, yeah, it did. You can usually use a pair of needle nose to get them out, but you're screwed at that moment. You got to go back and get pliers if you didn't have them with you, and it's a pain in the butt. Or bolt cutters, and cut the cables off. I've done that a few times too. So I'm here going through these keys. I got like 25 keys, and I was remember thinking to myself that whatever's going on here, I don't want no part of it. And I was thinking that I wanted to just hurry up and get out of here. And I kept going through these keys. It seemed like forever, and I kept hearing, like, off to my northwest direction. See, I'll describe the area just a little bit. I was in a little alder bottom where there's a little creek that ran across the backside of it, which changed it to like a little bit of a cedar grove, where it gradually went up slightly in elevation beyond that. And then there was these cedars that had limbs that came real down low, so you couldn't see in it from the location I was at. So I was in this salmonberry bottom that had alders and stuff, that was fairly open for about 70 yards in front of me, and then to my right. And it was real cold. It was in November, and so the creek was running really low, so you couldn't hear it. It wasn't creating any sound to cover anything up or anything. And it's just a tiny creek, anyways. But so I was hearing what was sounding like twigs being snapped off to my right, that seemed to me coming from that cedar grove. Uh, but what was odd about it is that the sound of the twigs breaking seemed to be a lot closer to me than that 70 yards away, because it was just little click, 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 just little dry branches being popped. And it sounded like, to me, I was thinking, well, you couldn't really hear that at 70 yards, but I could hear it real clear. And I kept looking over there thinking that there was, our feeling, there's nothing. And off to my left side was brush. I couldn't see anything in there, 10 yards, 5 yards at the most. And I never heard anything from that direction. So these twigs were breaking. I keep going through these keys, and this whole sense of dread keeps building and building and building on me. Like I mean, so intense that I couldn't barely function. Because I had this high level of fear, and you have to realize is that I mean, I had a pretty good threshold for fear to be able to handle it. Because I mean, I was on the SWAT team and high stress calls. I had guns pointed at my face from 3 yards away, and not knowing if I'm going to be getting shot in the face or I mean, I've been in a Mexican standoff before with a guy pointing a gun at me and me pointing a gun at him from 3 yards. you know, where it happens so fast that I mean, you have this huge heightened level of stress and fear that happens, and I'm squeezing the trigger actually before, at easing into it on a Glock before he decides to drop the gun. Right? I mean, milliseconds. So I've been in that situation before, and then this was so much more intense than that, but without any context, so you don't understand it. Right? So you don't know. You're confused. So I'm hearing these twigs break, and this is all building in me this out of context dread and fear, and all of a sudden I hear like a deer snort, you know, coming from that same direction. So I'm down because I'm like, oh, okay. There are bucks that are in the rut at this time around there. It's deer season, and I'm thinking I'm going to see a deer come through, or does do it too, so I didn't hear any stomp or anything like that, so it was just that sound. And so I start to think, well, maybe I'm going to see something that I know of, and it's going to calm me down because I'm going to know what it is out here making me feel this way, what presence it is. So I'm in denial, really, right? So but nothing, still getting a few twigs breaking. I'm about 3/4 of the way through this key ring now, and thinking to myself that I'm getting the f out of here after these kids are done. I ain't going through this ring again. I'm just leaving. Right. And then I get to the second last key and it opens it up. So I'm relieved because I really do want to check this camera because I'm under the belief and the impression that I had a Sasquatch that stepped right next to my other camera. And I start going through the process of disarming the Recon X camera. And this is the old style Recon X. They're a bit bigger, the bigger ones. And you have to push some buttons, turn it off, pull the card, put a new card in, turn it on, wait till it goes through a process, and then you engage it, and then put the cover on, lock it up, and all that. So I am in that process, and I'm I haven't re-engaged the camera yet. I'm waiting for it to go through. You hear it go click, 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 and then after that, the lights stop blinking, and you can push the go button. And out of nowhere, right in front of me this time, and I never sensed or heard anything in front of me or to my left. I hear this huge like exhale, growl, kind of like a groan, like, oh, but real deep, and like you could just feel it rumble all the way through you. And
Shit.
it's like I mean, immediately I felt like whatever it was completely disgusted in me. Like it was in total disgust, like irritation. And I knew exactly what it was. I had my head down, looking at this camera, and this thing was right on top of me, literally. Like it was right on top of me, straight in front of me. I could tell by the way the sound was coming at me. And I was just crapping my pants, and I was thinking I'm dead for one. And then I was thinking, I know I'm gonna look and see what's gonna kill me right when I tip my head up, right? So I started to lift my head up, and I'm wearing a hat, and I have a red hat on. I totally remember that. And so the brim of the hat's coming up, and it's just revealing this thing standing directly in front of me at 20 yards, right next to this big alder tree. And as I'm looking up at it and starting to lift up, it knows that I'm going to be looking directly at it. And obviously, it wanted me to see it. And it starts to duck down at the same time. So as I'm lifting up, by the time, I get my hat like to where like 3/4 of it are revealed, I get to about the shoulders and it starts to duck down on me. So it just ducks down to a squatting position and it's facing me. But I can tell you that the things I noticed on it were this. Clearly, there was debris stuck in its hair, like a ghillie suit. It had sticks sticking out of its hair on the backside, and there was looked like lichen was hanging off of it, the sticks or on its shoulders. The shoulders were so wide, uh, Like, for instance, if it was about 8 foot tall, I figured, by where it was sighted in the tree, maybe a little bigger, but the shoulders were over 5 feet wide at 8 feet tall. And it just had this head that was perched down on these shoulders that looked like the deltoids look like basketballs. And then the arms just hung down to about the knees or a little beyond. And I never noticed any facial detail or anything. I couldn't see the whites of the eyes or nothing like that because it was in motion when I was seeing it, right? And when it was got in motion, it was moving fast. It ducked down quick, and then this is something that scared the shit out of me too, was just the unnatural speed to its movement. Where when it ducked down and it shuffled like a gorilla would shuffle on all fours, like when a gorilla puts its hands down to the ground between its legs, and then it can take off from that position and go any direction like super fast. Well, this thing was 10 times faster than the fastest gorilla you ever saw, and it did it without making a sound, and it was bigger than a gorilla, right? As far as the shoulder width and the muscularity of this thing was just insane. Dark color, black almost. If anything, it was slightly lower light. It was about 11 a.m., but there was a cloud cover, and I remember thinking I'm dead. That was my thought, and I turned after it got out of view, and I thought it's flanking me because I'm parked over here, and it was headed towards my car, and I thought it's gonna cut me off, and I'm toast. I thought there's no way I'm surviving this. That was the thought in my mind that I was not gonna live. Um, so I turned and I directly headed straight from for the road, which is about 70 to 75 yards from where I was standing. But I never went that way before because there's a bunch of blackberries and briars and shit between me, right when the last 10 yards is all sticker bushes. And so it's like I went right through that shit and I never even thought about it, never got hung up. Got up on the road and I was hyperventilating. And then I started walking swiftly to my car, which was about 200 yards or so away from there. And my heart is palpitating. I'm hyperventilating. My heart's beating all crazy. I could feel it like skipping beats. And I got to my car. As soon as I shut the door, I just broke down in tears. Right. Extremely emotional just because I had gone through what I would call a near death experience. Right. Where I literally thought there was no chance I was going to survive that just because of the demeanor of this thing and the feeling that I had in me already. And I drove home, which was about 15 minutes from there by car. It's only roughly maybe 2 miles from my house as the crow flies because it
No.
was on an island, and there's a channel that runs between the mainland and the island on one side that's about maybe 300 yards wide or so, and then I happen to only live, like I said, about 2 miles from this place. It was on the north end of this island, and, I drove home, so I had time to think about it. By the time I got home, my wife was there. I walked in the door, she looked at me, her eyes got all big, and she's like, "What happened to you? You're white as a ghost." And I said, "You'll never believe it. I just had this encounter and this and that." And then I went right to the bedroom and I got on the phone and I called like 5 people. I called Jeff Meldrum, I called Scott Carpenter, I called Dave Politis, called Derek Randalls. Who knows who else I called? And I went through hysterically, talking probably 10 times faster than I am now. Everything exactly happened. I'm never doing this again.
Yeah.
This is crazy. These things are dangerous, and then as the day went on, I started to calm down a bit. And even though that I wanted to quit, never look into these things ever again, I started to realize that I had worked so hard up to this point, and I was actually exactly where I had always wanted to get to, where I'd actually seen it. It was aware of me. It had showed itself to me. A certain level of force, I guess you would call it. At least my impression is that the vocalization, the sighting was force it was using to get some sort of a behavioral change out of me, right? Maybe to leave him alone, to stop looking. I don't know. That was what I thought. And I realized that I gotta overcome my fear and I gotta continue to do this because now I'm exactly right where I wanna be and where I always wanted to be. And now maybe I can advance this to forming a relationship or, you know, having more advanced encounters. And I actually reluctantly, going against my instincts, I tried to
Really?
keep going, but nothing happened. And after that point, it was slowly wound down to where I had resources still out there. I had all these cameras and I was still doing this research. So I was still going back to locations to recover because I had like 50 cameras spread all over the place. And, but at the same time, the sense in me was telling me you need to back off, right? You need to, there was something in it in me that was saying that you don't need to be engaged with this. You don't need to be looking for this thing, right? I didn't know why that I was having these feelings or this strong sense, but I was forced to listen to it and kind of obey it over a period of time. It was almost like it was my inner self that was talking sense into me and to trying to redirect me away. And so really, from that point moving forward, I ended up where I'm at now. And I've been pretty consistent to where I'm not looking for these things. I have had more activity and whatnot. I've done some more experiments, even at my house where I live now, where I waited a substantial amount of time and then I called them here and they came, and I did it through wood knocks. And this is a totally, this is 50 miles from where I was at living before. So it certainly is a different group of them. It's not the same ones. But I would say this is that once you're engaged in this thing at that level, you seem to be marked and they seem to know you anyway. So it doesn't really matter which ones it is, they can find you, right? You can call them to you or they'll just come on their own, and I had a lot of strange happenings happen here for several years. And even to this day, things happen. And my daughter has claimed to have a sighting, just outside of my driveway about a year ago. And my wife and my daughter have had dreams related about these things. I don't anymore. Like, I don't, I've kind of written it off and I don't engage it other than, being aware. And they don't try to engage me either. At least that's up to this point, that's where I think that things are at. I mean, it is, personal still and it's close. I mean, I've been building something up in the woods beyond my house a couple of years. And more recently, I was putting some siding on and working up there with a generator. I had an air compressor going, and my dog's been going crazy in one specific direction. I found some impressions that are not really discernible. Can't say for sure. It could be a big bear. Um, but there's been something out there hanging out around the peripheral, out in the brush, in one specific spot that the dog seems to be aware of. And the dog, has wanted me to follow her a couple of times and to go check out whatever this is. But, we'll get 10 yards in and the dog will just stop and then back off and want to go the other direction. So whatever it is the dog's interested and curious, but at the same time doesn't want any part of whatever it is. And that could be we got some big bears around here that are hanging out. I live in at the edge of a wilderness area, I guess you could say. It's timberland. There's a bunch of lakes and swamps, you know, for several miles in multiple directions and hit no main roads or homes or anything like that, so
Dogs hate
and
bears.
there's a lot of historical sightings here too. So it's like they're around, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be it can be, these things show up in residential areas. I fielded reports on more than one report on a golf course, where people saw them in the morning drinking coffee, running on the fairway between little islands of brush and timber, and then hiding out in there. One guy had video that he showed me where he took some video where you could see that the brush was moving in there. Couldn't get any figures or nothing in it, but I went and walked through this thing, and this is just like a 60-foot by 60-foot brush island inside of a fairway. And this fairway's got houses along either side of it, and adjacent to it, within a quarter mile is vast timber, but they hang out close to where people live. You know,
Yeah.
that's repeated, you know. I mean, I've seen that so much that that's obvious. You don't gotta be out in the wilderness. These things are right next to the city.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you've been to Vancouver, haven't you? Vancouver, BC?
Yep,
Big city. They're right there. They're right there in
yep,
that timber, right around that. They're everywhere. Huh.
yep.
What a crazy thing, eh? I wonder why do you think so many of these other guys who've spent years being a researcher and they won't accept all the truth about it? And they won't peddle it, they won't talk about it, they deny it, and they attack anybody that wants to come forward with it. Why do they keep doing that shit?
I think it's related to both fear and ego
Hmm.
more than anything else, you know. I mean, you know enough, you've been engaged long enough around this Bigfoot community and these research to realize that there's a lot of jealousy in it. There's a lot of competition. Nobody really, I mean, I won't say nobody, but a lot of people don't want other people to have success, right? They want to be the one.
It's
And,
a
you know,
Go ahead.
I can tell you personally that I even felt that way for a period of time, especially in the beginning where it's a race, you know, you want to be the one. So you don't want anybody else to be the one. You don't want them to be the one to figure this out or to discover it. And especially if the truth lies outside of your belief system and outside that you're able to personally accept, I guess you could say, right? If it just goes beyond, you know, they want to keep it in a box that they're comfortable with, I guess. You know, they don't want, and I'll tell you that many, if not all of these people that have been in this a long time that tote this line and deny all this stuff, I guarantee you that they've had personal experience that's contrary to what they say or what they can accept.
Had to have had.
Yep.
Hey, have you ever come across anyone who actually had a conversation, a fluid conversation with one of these beings?
I have come across more than one person that claims to have these types of conversation remotely through what they call mind speak, but never anybody that has physically done it in person.
Because I'm curious about this part of it. Um, like so many, you get the mind speak thing is there's you can't ignore it. You can't. It's not, impossible to ignore it. It's fact. But it's always just tidbits like don't go over here. You got to get out of here now. Get out of here. Come into the forest out your bedroom window. But nobody's actually saying, yeah, I sat down and asked it a few questions, what it did today, where it went yesterday, what's it doing tomorrow. Like there's no there I haven't come across one fluid conversation back and forth yet myself.
Nope. And I'll tell you, this is a personal experience of mine where, okay, I got into a situation after I lived here where, you know, I kind of went down a different avenue. So I was exploring, I guess, these other things. You know, I had a couple of different women that had contact with that were mediums, I guess you could say, clairvoyants. One of them was particularly with Bigfoot, Mount Adams area. Les Stroud actually went and had contact with this woman. Richard Hucklebridge um, had been to this site and confirmed that it was legit. So I was talking to this woman. I had been invited personally, but I didn't want to go. You know, I didn't want to go there. I was really, you know, reluctant after my experience. You know, I had a lot of fear in me related to it and unknown. But I was communicating with her through email and on the phone a few times. Her name was Michael. She's still around, I believe. And she told me crazy stuff. She started relaying information to me about these Bigfoots that were around my house, telling me where they had been observing me from, looking in my windows, told me they'd been inside of my house. She had described the inside of my house through email, like within 90% accuracy.
What?
In fact, the piece of property next to me is owned by my cousins, and they were doing a commercial thinning job on it, cutting cedar out of there. And so they had logging equipment and a landing set over there. And we were concerned about vandalism because of the area I live in. And so I had a game camera set up over there. And she just emails me one day. I had never discussed this with her. And she said, I just want you to know that, you know, my Bigfoot friends told me that you don't have to be concerned about vandalism over there at that site next to your house. You don't have to worry about that, right? It's not going to happen." And I'm like, "Well, how did she even know this was going on?" And one more thing that was very personal, and this is what kind of pushed me away from it, is because I was kind of offended by this. Is my wife has a medical problem, and she has real issues with sleeping for time I've been on the couch. And she emails me one day and she said, "Yeah, my Bigfoot friends, these Bigfoots that are around your house, they want to know why that you and your wife aren't sleeping in the current same bed currently."
Well,
Nobody knew that because I'm not going to publicly disclose that to anybody. That's nobody's business, right? And I was like, I told her why, but that was kind of when I started to cut off the communication because, I mean, obviously I knew whatever she was telling me was legit because nobody could know this stuff. I actually went up behind my house and I found spots where things had been sitting on the hillside, where there were stacks of little sticks that had been broken and piled up, where direct in line with the windows of my house. And it's up in elevation. So you can look up from up above the hill and see into the windows, right? So you can see the people moving around. You can look in the windows and describe it. She told me they'd been inside my house, right? But I could cut off that permission if I wanted to. I mean, I wasn't discounting what she said because she knew the layout of my house and she'd never been to my house before, right?
holy,
Or talked to anybody that ever had been. And that was her. And then I had another woman that I had met at the High Mile Mystery Conference. See, we were doing the conference in Colorado that Politis put on, and there happened to be a Women's for Business conference going on at the same time. And so the last day of the conference, we were hanging out, and there was all these people around, and we ended up talking to these people, a group of us, and this woman was there, and her business was she's a medium, right? So I was talking to her, and she gave me her card, and later on, I talked to her a little bit more, and she offered to give me a free session on Zoom. So I took her up on her offer and we're talking. And then all of a sudden she stops the meeting or what we were talking about. She says, "Hey, I just got to tell you, there's some entity in my office right now that wants me to facilitate communication between us." And she said, "It's not a human being entity. It's not," she said, it's a Bigfoot. She says, "I think that's what it's telling me that it is." And it was not there in physical form. She said it was there physically, but not as a Bigfoot, right? So I agreed to allow her to teach me how to remote communicate. And long story short, it didn't work out. For whatever reason, I wasn't able to do it. And she said that I would be able to do it. They said that I was able to, but for some reason, they needed a third party to facilitate to teach me or something. And so, through this process, I became frustrated. And common sense, logically, I was saying, well, I'm talking to these women that are telling me I got these Bigfoots that are hanging around my house that want to talk to me. Well, then I just told them, I was like, and I even projected this out myself. I said, well, what is a big deal? If you're here and I'm here, I'm non threatening. I'm willing to have a face to face. Let's sit down and talk face to face, communicate. Forget all this, remote communication bullshit. Let's just talk face to face. What's the problem? Well, for whatever reason, that can't happen. So, and I was never told why it can't happen or why it didn't happen, right? But I backed off on the whole remote communication thing, and ultimately, I'll tell you that I became frustrated in this, and I went outside one day and by myself, and in my head, I just projected out. I said, "Look, I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to make this work. I'm open to it, but." I said, "I'm not giving nothing up. I'm not going to relinquish anything in order for this to happen." And everything stopped for me. Right, it all just kind of, dissipated, and I'll tell you that when these things seem to be around and when all this was going on is it wasn't necessarily a good thing, I mean, my family life was the worst it had ever been. My relationship with my wife and kids had been the worst that it had ever been. There seemed to be some sort of dark cloud over the place that I lived, the birds weren't singing anymore, you know, it just seemed to be very stagnant, like you were in some sort of a vacuum.
wow.
So that was my experience with the whole thing, and, so I went the full course of it, and it never happened for me, and, to this day, I'm not exactly sure why, but I think it has something to do with me personally, to
Sounds like it.
why it didn't happen.
Your gut instinct was telling you what to do, right?
Yeah, and I was going against it, you know. So
So that original woman, the first one you mentioned, had she mentioned any knowledge of she gained through direct conversation with them?
yes, she claimed that actually she had direct communication and contact, but most of the communication that she had done would be telepathic. And in fact, she claimed that these things were seeing everything that she sees through her eyes. I mean, she's watching YouTube videos and movies and stuff, and they're watching them too. And so that ended up being how Les Stroud got involved with this, is because she seeked him out uh, through Huckleberry and Dave Politis, who I think are the ones who set that all up with for her. Mostly Politis, um, with Les Stroud. So she was claiming this, and like I said, Huckleberry went there and spent several days at her house, him and his wife, and they never physically saw him in person, but they saw them coming in, I guess you could say. They could see breath moving, and they heard them vocalizing out there, and then she would be the one to relay the communication between them, and because so they were communicating with her telepathically while they were outside, and then Huckleberry and his wife were aware of their presence physically and inherently, and they're communicating through her like a medium, like a third party. So it
So,
wasn't a face-to-face communication.
but what were they saying?
I don't remember.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure Richard could talk to you and tell you personally. I mean, he's one of your big fans, so you could talk to him and he'd tell you everything. He's totally open with it, everything that happened related to that. But I believe him.
Do you think you'd want to come on here with me?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. I'll
Yeah, he
talk.
would definitely come on with you. I mean, I could get you in touch with him, and or you could he's on Facebook. I mean, I think he follows you on Facebook, so.
I'm never on there, man. Like I'm not on Facebook.
Well, I'll set it up then. If you want, I'll get him to in touch with you.
Yeah, let's do it for sure. Yeah, I'm way beyond needing proof or trying to get proof. I want our typical what I just want some answers. You know what I mean? And like I've had a couple opportunities to possibly go directly to these beings, but like you said with the mind speak thing, you don't. My guts not saying, yeah, do it. This is gonna be great. You know what I mean? It's like I believe I obviously there's a high risk of inviting something into your life that you're not gonna be able to shake, and it might not be that pleasant.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, I do think that at least my intuition is telling me this thing can be some sort of it can be like an attachment, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Right. And I do believe that it goes both ways, that there's something in it for them. Right. There seems to be something in it for us, obviously, but there also must be something in it for them because it's time. They're putting in time, right, and effort into this thing. And so they wouldn't be doing that for no reason. And they don't seem to be into this to help humanity, I guess you could say. They're not trying to evolve humanity. They're not trying to make human beings better, right, as a whole. They don't seem to be doing that. That doesn't seem to be what their agenda is. They don't seem to be, you know, preaching that or trying to get that word out. That doesn't seem to be their agenda. It
Yeah,
seems to be more personal.
they don't need to be saying, "Hey, humans, guess what you can do too." Said no Sasquatch ever, right?
Nope, they're not doing that.
What a ride, though, isn't it? A frickin' ride. This lifetime is one hell of a crazy ass ride.
Well, I wouldn't take any of it back. I mean, this is all helped, push me and make me question everything and to become more aware, you know.
Well, that's the thing, that obviously we went down the same route. The second I had that reality slapped in my face, my brain didn't go, "Oh man, I'm gonna form a Bigfoot group and a Bigfoot excursions, and I'm gonna get pictures." My brain went instantly, "What the F? What else have we been lied to about?"
Everything.
Right? And that's how it started for me. And then you start waking up and you figure it out. It's almost like they intentionally gave you the slap in the head to go, "Hey, guess what?" And then all of a sudden your brain goes, "Holy shit." And then you can't stop. Right? And then it amazes me how many people do have an experience and they don't go that way. They just stay doing the exact same circle that goes nowhere endlessly. And it's like, good God, how can you be that dim? Seriously? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's true. And like I mean, like you said, what else are they lying to you about? I remember when I had my first encounter, and so I had this, driving down the road. I wasn't really totally afraid or anything because I was inside of a car and I didn't feel like I was in danger. It was like a big shock where you happen to see something that's not real. So you have to accept it. And then, I remember driving back to the station and I was like a mile from the station when I saw this thing. And I started to feel the next thing I started to feel was like I had been betrayed because I was like, okay, this is a traumatic experience. Like you go through trauma when you see this thing, right? It is
Yeah.
unsettling. It starts to uproot everything. So I was like, why did I get put through this? I was angry in a way because I was a professional. I'd been in the military through the government type education system. And I started to ask myself, why wasn't I told about this? Why did I have to experience this traumatic event without prior knowledge? Right. I was not informed, about what exists in my natural environment. And I started to think about it like, what else are they lying about then? What else are they hiding? Because I started to question everything after that point, and I think with me in particular, it made it so I was not
Breaking up. Uh-oh. Can't hear you.
against what I thought was bullshit.
Damn it. Just lost you for about 30 seconds.
That makes a difference. Are you back on now?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's a crazy ride, that's for sure. There's no
Well,
doubt about that.
and it's all, you ever get to the point sometimes where you think, oh man, maybe it is, maybe almost, I don't envy, but sometimes I entertain the thought of possibly envying the people who just don't get it, don't care, and they follow the program and they don't veer off the line and they live and they die. It's like, huh, I wonder how comfortable that is. Maybe it is the best way to go sometimes. Not really, but
Well, I don't know. I think it's pretty scary to think about that. I mean, death must be pretty scary if that's the way you're living your life.
yeah, death. Huh. Man, my brain is not exploding, but you get so many thoughts and so many topics ripping around in your bean and trying not to spit them all out because we could probably talk here for like a month and a half, right?
Oh, we could, yeah.
Yeah. So have you ever had a just minor topic? Have they taken anything from your place?
No, not that I'm aware of from my house, but I have had them at a research location. I have had them take gifts and both return them and not return them. Not really much exchange go on as far as with me. I haven't had them bring me stuff in return for anything like that. To be honest with you, I don't. It never got that intimate with me to where maybe that incident I had at Harstein Island. At least in the context that everything happened. I think that with me in particular, that they probably didn't trust me all that much because my intent was personal, I guess you could say, and I was trying to get something out of it. Right, I was trying to control the situation. I was never really able to put my guard down and relinquish control to them or anything like that. I don't know that I could ever do that. And so maybe I was always considered more of a threat than anything else. And maybe there was some sort of curiosity with them with me. And that's why it kept kind of going. And but yeah,
I think another thing too that a lot of people don't think of is it doesn't feel good to be hunted,
no,
right?
I
It
don't
doesn't
think
feel
I
good to
don't
be
I
spot
don't
out.
think most of these people look at it that way though.
I know, like even just with me, like I've done well hunting up here. I got a bit of a name in the hunting world, and the feeling that I would get from people actively trying to seek me out just from where I'm hunting a somewhat comparison is threatening. It pisses you off, and it really bugs the shit out of you. So
Yeah.
that's the only way I can relate. Well, I've had a couple animals hunting me to kill me, but that's a different feeling. it's a different topic. But I think that once they realize you are intentionally hunting them, they're like, "What? F you." You know? Maybe.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good to be hunted.
Well, no, I mean, look at Rene Dahinden. He didn't have a lot of success, and that's what he was doing. He was hunting them. He was trying to kill one, right? That was his whole agenda and whole goal was to put one, a body on the slab. And
Yeah, yeah.
he was a big game hunter. That's what he was doing. He was hunting Bigfoot, but he didn't have any success. He never hunted. He never killed one. He never got a shot at one. I bet either. I don't know for
I
sure,
don't think
but
he even saw one.
maybe not.
It tore his family apart, though. He died a lonely man all by himself, right?
Obsession. Yeah.
Yeah, met his son used to live in the same town as me in Pemberton, or he probably still does live there. But anyway, how long have you been at it? You got to get going, yeah?
Probably pretty soon. I do have to go to work in a little while, but we can talk a little longer. We can do this again too. We don't have to end it here. We can
For sure, we're gonna.
wait a week, and do another show.
So, what do you do for fun over there? You hunting fish?
Not as much as I used to, but I do a little bit still. I don't fish. I used to fish all the time. That's why I end up moving out to Forks, Washington, and that was the whole reason why. Is that's all I did. And so this changed that behavior for a while, but then I got back into it again, and after I moved around, I kind of got out of fishing more, and I don't do it as much. I switched over to hunting and doing that more, but now I don't even do that as much anymore these days. I've been staying home a lot more and just working around here. And to be honest with you, like the state I live in has pretty much done everything they can to destroy both resources. So it's merely just a shadow of its previous self. I mean, it's not as fun as it used to be. I was started steelhead fishing when I was about 9 years old and early 80s, and all the way until I was in my early 30s, and I watched it degrade heavily over that period of time related to the management styles that they're doing, and it seems to me that what I've taken out of it is that the state is actually trying to destroy the resources. That is their whole agenda, is to not enhance them, but to hurt them and to cut off the access and to do with hunting and fishing both. I mean, well, I mean, you look at it, the habitat is pretty pristine here, but the management of especially with the adronomous fish, the steelhead and the salmon, they use a management tool called maximum sustainable yield, which is to commercially harvest every accessible fish off of the out of the terminal areas, both in the ocean and in the rivers. And the habitat's pristine. They talk about removing all the dams and stuff like that, but there's no fish to even get up into those areas anymore. So and then they've stopped most of the hatchery production here, so that the opportunity has massively shrunk up. So all these places that used to be pretty good fishing aren't very good anymore, and many of them don't even have any seasons anymore. I used to fish a lot of the small streams on the coast uh, that they were doing hatchery supplementation into, and so there was both wild runs and pretty good hatchery runs too. And now they've closed the wild season down, so there's no season. You can't even fish, and then they cut the hatchery plant, so there are no hatchery fish in most of these places. And
I don't get it. They shut down a whole bunch of hatcheries here too, and they don't. Most of them don't even touch steelhead because there's no money in it. Oh, really? So you annihilated a species, and you're not going to bring it back because it doesn't pay you money? It's stupid. Yeah, but you still got to do
well,
it.
look at
It's soul
well,
thing.
something.
Go
Oh
ahead.
yeah. Well, I was just going to say too that I don't know. You look at the science that they used related to their management and whatnot, and none of it. I don't think it. I think it's bogus, to be honest with you, because you can go down to Argentina or Chile, and these these areas and these rivers have established these their own robust runs, the Chinook and steelhead and stuff down here, and these are all off of escaped farm pen fish and hatchery fish that they brought from here, and they just exploited a habitat and resource that wasn't being utilized, and now they've got 80-pound kings in Chile.
You
right?
seen those suckers? Oh my
Yeah.
God, I want to go down there.
So I don't see why the same thing couldn't happen here. Why can't even, if a lot of the wild fish are gone, you would think that the hatchery fish would just, you know, they would just take over and repopulate themselves.
Yeah, well,
But
it's like that one person I talked to previously, kept his identity secret, talked to me at Proton quite a few times, 5 careers in the US military and NASA, and etc. And he had a meeting and he said flat out that the government lawyer spun to him and said, sure, you do know this, but just so you know, the government does not care about absolutely anything except for control of the labor to appease the entity, and that's it.
well, sure. But like here, I watched that they utilize the commercial resource, both tribal and non, but mostly tribal around here to exploit these resources essentially to the point that, to be honest, they want to make it so the people can't feed themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
So they're taking it away. Like, for instance, like here, the reason why that there was such a robust native population of people here before white contact, it's because food was so easy to get. Right? The fish, there were so many fish that they just picked them up off the bank because the river wasn't big enough for them all to come in. They pushed themselves up off to the bank, and I mean, they could just go crab, clams, everything. It was just so abundant that they could have vast populations of people and not even have to go a mile off the beach to get all their food.
Yeah. So what are you guys eating? So you're not stuffing your freezer full of fish and game. Are you raising anything? Got any chickens or anything?
We got chickens, and
Yeah.
I still eat fish and game too. I mean, I got an elk 2 years ago, so I still got some meat from that. I elk hunt mostly every year. This year we're gonna do it again, but it ain't gonna be too crazy. We're gonna do some other stuff too, but deer, and I mean, I do eat wild game.
Yeah, it's all we eat. Well, we raise the chickens, raise turkeys, and then I fill the freezer every year. It's just a matter of doing it. It's not a hunting to me is fun, it's special, but it's not like a special occasion. It's just it has to be done. It's just the way the
For sure.
choice that I've
Yeah,
made. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, well, shit, you want to come up and load up on salmon and halibut? You're not too far away. Come and jump on the boat.
I would love to. Definitely. One of these days we'll talk about it.
Jump in, man. It's not if you're real close, be real easy. Load you up.
Yep.
Take us to my Sasquatch area. I'm kidding. I don't have a Sasquatch area, but they're definitely hang out where I hang out. I just got to speak out loud to them every time I start my day, and it seems to work. But they still let me know they're there. Like I seen one probably I don't know a month ago, I guess, across the valley in the slash, about 200 yards up from the pool. I was going to go steelheading in, but it's one of those just a quick glance. Whoa, what was that? I don't want to know what it was because I'm not into it, right? And I didn't turn around, but then when it back up, it's gone. Oh yeah, and it was huge, huge blackish gray, right in the middle of clear cut where the stumps are down to this much and it's cleared off. Anyway, I'm just saying they let me know, and then another couple weeks ago the dog started. Well, we heard a howl across the valley from where we were coming out of the river and heard a howl from the hill above where I was parked. And the dog's like this, and then all of a sudden the dog looks up and starts going ape shit, looking up in the trees. And they were like regrowth fur, so they got long trunks and not much canopy up there. And we rode on the edge, so they still let me know. But oh yeah, so I was asking if they took anything from me because they're here too, obviously, right here where I am now. I had this wicked $200 frickin' axe I bought like a year ago, and I had it out in my back 40 there. I had a few trees down, buck them up and split them. So, my axe is gone. I'm like, you bastards, you guys take my axe? Because nobody's on this property, right? That's why I was asking it. Do you ever take anything from you? Because that axe is absolutely gone. The chainsaw's right there, the fuel's there. Axe is gone. I'm like, son of a bitch. That sucks.
Nope, I haven't had it, but yeah. I know that they do take stuff. I mean, I've talked to so many people that have had stuff go missing at especially these habituation sites.
Yeah. How about this? I don't know if you watch any of the videos here, but did you see when I got this knife returned to me?
Oh yeah, I watched that one.
What's up with that one, right? Like you can imagine the shock, not the shock, just like, huh? Like, what? You got to be freaking kidding me. Friend of mine who was with me, hunting partner, he's actually got a degree in psychology. Not that makes any difference, but he was right there too, and he's looking down and he's like, "Huh?" I mean, what do you even say to that?
Nothing.
Nothing. But it was
Unexplainable.
such an in your face example made or statement made, whatever you want to call it. It was just such an in your face, brain stop dead, stand there and let your jaw bounce off the ground a few times and shake your head and just so bizarre.
Well, I mean, there's great benefit in this. I mean, individually, I think this is so personal related to this thing because, I mean, a lot of the things that you're showing, you can relay it to the public, but they're not personally experiencing it. But you get to be shown things that are impossible, I guess you could say, that it's not part of the natural world that we are aware of, that it opens your mind up and your eyes to it to where it starts to, if you take this the right way, I guess, and get out of it what I think you're supposed to get out of it, which is that there's so much more to be found out than we actually know, right? That we're cut off from the truth. And
That frustrate you? It just is. That's very, very frustrating for me. Is this? I call it a theft, man. It's just such a theft of quality of life, possibly major, major violation, major theft, right? This this keeping us this knowledge, all this knowledge intentionally being kept from us. It just makes me a little angry, you know?
but think about it. How many people have you touched? I mean, you have a huge viewership, you know, and you've attracted all these people that had nowhere else to you know, to relate, and they felt more alone. And now they know that because of what you're doing and other people are doing, you know, and to what I've done to some degree, is that they're not alone. You know, there's so many people that have so much in common and so much of this experience, and they have to go to each other to get support for it because there is no other place to go. And that's one thing that this technology that we have has done, is that it's been able to, you know, bring support to so many people, to each other, to so they could support each other by basically giving their own testimonies, you know, related to these experiences, and they can find out that it's not so uncommon and rare as they thought that maybe it was, that it actually is normal.
Yeah, yeah. It seems I'm learning. It takes a while. It takes a while for people to come around. Like I still today, I mean, I've probably got, I don't know, it was over a year ago, there was 20,000 emails. Over 2 years ago, maybe. I don't even bother to guess anymore. Who knows? 30? 30,000? I don't know. But even still today, probably a couple times a week, maybe even a few. I don't know. There's so many emails, but people finally say, okay, I'm finally ready to share my story. And it's taken them this long still, even though they've been following like this channel and more for how long now. So it's a steady trickle, but it just makes it apparent to me how long it actually takes for somebody to finally go, okay, I'm gonna do it tomorrow. I'm gonna share my story tomorrow. It's crazy to
Oh
watch
yeah,
that.
it is. I mean, it makes me feel so good for these people that they're able to do that. And you know, it's so much value in it too. Look at how many people that have come out of the woodwork because of this. I guess this phenomena of this breaking into the open, where so many people in professional capacity that have had experiences, encounters that have, uh, many of them anonymously still, but they've been able to become confident enough that they can come and tell these stories, right? And they can come and reveal this information. This has so much value. It's the eyewitness accounts that is the most valuable out of all of this stuff. It outweighs all the other evidence by so much. The personal accounts,
Oh
you know,
God,
the personal
easily.
experiences.
Yeah, yeah. Like I always say it, this channel, my channel anyways, I don't follow too much stuff online. But when it comes to this topic, I don't follow anything. I just listen to the people. My focus is 100% on all the people that reach out and share. And that's made me realize, holy shit, is there ever a lot of power when you give it to the people, man? It's huge. Obviously, because the dark pricks have been harnessing it, right? But man, when you let people speak openly, and make them and respect them, give them a safe place, and then the numbers start piling up. Holy shit, man! The power to the people is huge,
It
huge.
is.
Need
There's
government.
no going back.
Yeah, and I'm trying to. There's still a handful of people out there who go, why doesn't the government acknowledge it? I'm like, oh my God, you quit thinking that way. Do not give them that power. You don't need nothing from anybody called government. They need you. All you got to do is speak freely. You've done it. There you go. It's acknowledged. Just got to speak out loud. That's it. That's all you got to do.
Mhm.
Be a foggy day in hell when some prick in that building over there. I need something. I need those people to tell me something. Said no functioning brain ever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, man, we got to get going. I'm running the frickin' farm solo. I got cats, dogs, horses, chickens, baby chickens. They keep knocking the water over. I got so much shit I got to get going on here today, so I don't get in shit from the big boss.
I mean, this whole time we've been talking, I've had a cat that won't leave me alone, and my dog has been sitting here right beside me the whole time.
All right
They
on.
won't get away. I've been kicking at the cat and trying to get him to go away, and he won't leave me alone.
Well, you know what's gonna happen now? Because I noticed it a couple times. You can see little glimpses of them. So now the inbox is gonna be full of people sending a snapshot with a circle.
Oh yeah.
There was a Sasquatch right behind Rich the whole time. Here, check this photo out.
Oh yeah, we get that. I mean, you've seen the Flash of Beauty stuff at all?
No.
Uh, movie that was done. They did 2 movies. I'm in it, but it's a great film. They did a great job. It's high level. It's basically I urge you to watch it or anybody to watch it because it has pushed this thing to an entirely whole nother level. I know that for whatever reason in Canada they can't market the film up there. It goes against their standards or something like that. But it's on YouTube now for free, so both of them are, so you can watch it.
What's it about?
It's Bigfoot.
Oh,
It's called Flash of Beauty. The first one is Bigfoot Revealed. The second one's called Paranormal Bigfoot. It's basically just really good eyewitness accounts,
oh yeah.
and it's a beautiful film. They're totally beautiful films. They're very, very good.
Oh, good. So it's all legit. So it's worthy of time.
Absolutely. Plus, they have a YouTube channel where they have released all of uh, the raw interviews that they did for the film. So they have all the entire like. There's a for me, it's 2 parts. There's 2 hour long interviews that they're able to put up. That is the entire film when they came and interviewed me. Where there's only 15 minutes in the 2 movies, but there's 2 hours you can watch. But they did that for everybody that was in the film. It's at a whole nother level. There ain't nothing even close to it. And I ain't saying that just because I'm in it. It's high quality. They were able to, you know, basically turn the eyewitness accounts into prima facie evidence, essentially by you're able to read the body language. You can see the emotion in the people related to it. You can read the truth coming right out of them. It's excellent.
Cool. We'll check it out if I can find 2 hours. But I will for sure. I'm sure everybody's going to be diving on that now for sure.
I'll send you a link to everything's on their YouTube page. The movies are free now. They were you were having to watch them on Amazon and pay for them for a while or different places, but now it's all free.
Cool. Yeah, make sure you give
Yep.
me link me up with that man too that went and saw that.
Rich. Yep,
And we'll
I
get him
will.
here and hear what he's got to say. Yeah.
All right. As soon as we get off, I'll send you links either email or Facebook. Which one? Either.
Email. Well, you know that
Okay.
messenger thing? Yeah, because that messenger thing I talked to you, that's not on, it's on my phone right there. It's not, I don't go into Facebook to get those messages from you.
Okay. I'll do it on Messenger then. I'll send you them there.
Yeah. And then,
Okay. Cool.
yeah. All right, let's get our day going, man.
All right. Have a good one. I appreciate you having me on.
Dude, appreciate you coming on. We'll be back for sure. I'll have you on here for sure.
Excellent.
But
Yeah.
it's funny how long it takes to line this shit up, though, eh?
Well, just so busy. That's
Yeah.
why. I mean, lately, the time of year and everything, it's been crazy. And I've been doing a bunch of other stuff. I did some casting stuff, like I said, and then I'm doing another podcast called Unrestricted Warfare with this guy James Grundvig that I'm a regular guest every week. We didn't do it this week because he's producing this movie, but he used to write for the Epoch Times and was an editor for them. And it's it's about current events, news
Cool.
mostly.
Truth. Lots of truth. Keep speaking the truth,
Yep.
man. Right? Well, you don't have to be told that. All
All
right.
right, we'll see you later.
Full day is about to start. Here we go. Appreciate you, man. I'll talk to you shortly, huh?
Yep.
Wait. I see something behind you. Oh, it's a dog.
The dog. All
So
right, I'm out.
okay, we'll talk to you later on, man. Thanks. Later.
Yeah! That's a beauty, eh? Oh my God, look at his tail's all chewed up from the seal. Yeah, give the line, let him go. Steer him over here with the rod tip. Oh my God, look at that.